Greetings, Scattered Sheep. Welcome to the program. I'm your host, Jackie Alnor. Well, I just got back yesterday from LAX, the airport that had this big shutdown just a few hours after I got off the ground. Praise the Lord, it didn't happen when I was there. I just found out about it today. I guess it was some sort of cyber attack or something that knocked out LAX airport. I was really shocked. I haven't flown into LAX in a long time, but it was so much cheaper to go there. It was an extra $200 to go to Orange County Airport, which would have been preferable, but I was working on a limited amount of budget in order to make this impromptu trip to LA, and then on to the Orange County Superior Court to hear the closing arguments of the case that Paul and Jan Crouch, granddaughter Carra Crouch, brought against Trinity Broadcasting Network to seek damages for what she suffered at the hands of Jan Crouch, who pretty much destroyed her back when she was only 13 years old, and she was raped by a TBN employee. And when she told her grandmother about it, instead of her grandmother praying with her or ministering to her or being sympathetic with her, she called her names and said it was her fault and got furious. And what are you going to do? You know, what's this going to do to TBN? And then she calls her nephew up, the TBN attorney, John Casoria, and tells him, whatever you've got to do, on TBN's behalf, do it, So he pretty much looked into it, saw that this guy, this 30-year-old man by the name of Stephen Smith, had indeed done something inappropriate with the 13-year-old. And so he was fired after pretty much being told that if he spoke about it, that that they'd come after him for criminal charges. Of course, they should have come after him for criminal charges anyway, and that's what this lawsuit is about, because this happened back in 2006. And so when she filed her case, back then she was 13, and she filed her case when she was an adult, because she certainly couldn't do anything about it at the time. In 2006, do the math, she's still pretty young. She's only 24 now. But it took 5 years for it to get to court, because TBN's attorneys are masters of manipulating the court system and doing all of these, anything to extend the whole thing out. Something like this should not have taken 5 years. But again, when you use the court system as a way to beat up your opposition, that is what happens. And so I really wanted to get a group together to go out in front of the court and to protest. And so that kind of all fizzled out. I only had a couple of volunteers, and then both of them had to work, and it was very short notice. And then when I actually got there to Santa Ana to see how the size of this courthouse, they must have had more than 1,000 cases going on at one time. This place was huge. We wouldn't even have been a blip on all the people walking by, so I don't think it would have gotten us anywhere anyway. And to my surprise, when I got into the courtroom, I was the first one there, basically, and the place was absolutely empty. Even when Carra and her two attorneys showed up, and they, were getting ready to begin, maybe one other lady came, and her name was Maria. That's all I know. And yet she seemed to know Carra, and I hadn't met Carra before, and I had never spoken to her. I've certainly met her sister and spoken to Brittany, of whom TBN has over 20 lawsuits aimed at her at the moment. And so Carra introduced herself to me, and she really held herself well. I was very impressed with how calm she could remain when this is the summation of a battle that went on for years like that. And of course, all of it hinged upon what Jan Crouch did to her, and how Carra was left to feel totally humiliated. I mean, after bad enough that she was raped by this creep, And, really because as a 13-year-old, she had no adult supervision at all when she was at this praise-a-thon that they were doing from Atlanta, Georgia. Now, of course, Jan and Paul, they would always be doing praise-a-thons. It's their fundraising thing. They would always be doing it from different parts of the country because Jan and Paul really, according to Brittany, the other granddaughter, they really didn't like to be in the same room with each other. As a matter of fact, Brittany has said that, Jan just pretty much despised Paul and, knew that Paul had a preference for men over women. And of course, but you know the story. Jan Crouch also had a big preference for men, especially if they resembled Jesus in her mind, or whatever her view of what Jesus is supposed to look like, which mainly I think she got from Mother Teresa or somebody, because she always has these pictures of this Catholic-looking Jesus all the time. Of course, I speak to her in present tense, but she has gone on to her reward, whatever that might be, and so she's not with us anymore. And yet, this case was filed several years before she died, and yet the fact that she wasn't there to defend herself was used against Carra Crouch in the closing arguments of this case. On Wednesday was the closing arguments, and I wrote an article about it. You can look it up on Rapture Ready Radio. And the article I wrote is called Carra Crouch, Blamed, Branded, and Broken. And that is how her attorney, David Kiesling, put it when he did his closing arguments. And the man was, wow, if I ever need a lawyer, I think I'll find that Southern gentleman. He actually works out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. But his closing arguments, I could tell from looking at the jurors that they were, some of the women were kind of, I think, fighting back the tears. And some of those same women I saw that seemed a little teary-eyed when he was going over all the hurt and harm and humiliation that Carra suffered at the hands of Jan Crouch. I could see them holding back their tears. And when the TBNs got their man, Michael King, to get up there and do his lackluster performance of their so-called defense, some of those same ladies were glaring at him. I was kind of chuckling about it. So pray for her. The jury comes back again in their deliberations on Monday, and they pretty much have a list of questions that need to be answered, and I think someone said it was 5 pages of questions, and they've got to go from one to another, and they actually only need 9 of the 12 jurors to agree, and then they go on, and then that's settled, and they go to the next question. So it's not like in criminal court where you need all of them to agree. This is a civil case, and as a civil case, these attorneys were allowed to try to turn the victim into the perpetrator, and they, from what I understand, and from how because I wasn't there for, of course, this was a 30-day case that, again, according to Carra's attorney, TBN's people wouldn't stick with the issues. They were going off, skating all the way around it, trying to defame Carra's parents, and then trying to even brought my name into it. And in fact, my name was even brought up in the closing arguments because of the interview that I did with Brittany, and they had subpoenaed her emails and found emails between me and Carra that they turned into what they had tried to coin as a conspiracy for, how can it be a conspiracy just because I advised Brittany in her case, nothing to do with the Carra case, but that I advised Brittany it might be a good idea to get a big name attorney in order to bring some public attention on these cases. And here's what it sounds like. I started to say, there was nobody even there in the courtroom. A few people came in here and there. The new wife of Paul Crouch Jr., she showed up a little late. There was a few more ladies that I think one of them was married to the co-counsel of Carra's, and then there was another lady on the other side who is Mrs. King, and I think some attorneys from I think it was the Orange County Register, they popped in for just long enough to get some good juicy quotes, and then they left. And so their article that they posted consisted of rehashing the big story that one of their reporters had filed when this first started a month ago. And then they just rehash the whole thing and then add a few more quotes and say this is now going to be decided. But again, they don't care about any of the intricacies of this case, and neither does the Christian media, because none of them bothered to show up at any time. And you don't see other religious news service or WorldNet Daily. I haven't seen any of them do anything hard hitting on the Word Faith movement, the prosperity gospel, some of the false teachers and false prophets, and some of these evil workers in the church who are wreaking havoc with the sheep, that are shipwrecking many people's faith. I just don't see where there is anything in the Christian media that even seems to care about the truth as far as the gospel goes. And it's like, well, any ministries, they're all, they all may be different and conflicting, but who cares? So I don't know, a lot of them will just kind of look at things having more to do with politics than it does with what we're seeing as the formation of the great whore in our day. I mean, the great apostasy is already over. As far as I can tell, Trinity Broadcasting set the stage for it. And again, they are the global network, the largest so-called, I'm Christian using air quotes, television networks on the planet, with over 22 different networks that comprise TBN. And, one of them was the church channel. I believe that one was turned over or sold to Hillsong. So you have men like false teachers who promoted some of the craziest, wildest anti-Christian things imaginable down at Hillsong in Australia, and they're running one of TBN's networks. So all the other networks on, that have come up after TBN, like God TV, Cornerstone, Daystar, well, you name it. There's quite a lot of them. Those people all just kind of look to TBN as their guide in how to get things going, including how to use the false teaching of that really is mammon worship, of the seed faith, of course, the seed of that the Bible says to sow is the seed of the gospel, and it will, if it gets into good ground, it's going to grow. But they're good. Their 30, 60, and 100-fold is applied to mammon, to money, and that's how they twist the Bible. But if it works and it gets the phones ringing, then the other ones follow suit. Well, it's come to that time now where all the people have spent decades sowing their seed and getting nothing in return, and the only ones that are getting rich are the televangelists. So that doesn't work for them anymore. So guess what? Now that Matthew Crouch, the son of Jan Crouch and the pseudo son of Paul Crouch, now he's the guy in charge, and he's given TBN this entire facelift. He's cutting out excess properties and things like that, and with the money, and he put a stop to the praise-a-thons. He's going to try to clean up the act, and you can already see the transformation going on, and you watch. All the other ones are going to do that too, because they all see, this isn't reaching the culture anymore. We no longer, as I would put it, they don't want to look like the Rhinestone Hillbilly Network, jumping around and having people like Steve Brock and some of these goofy country guys. Not that I'm against country music, there's some good ones, but some of these guys that couldn't give a rip about truth or defending the faith, or even proclaiming the faith for that matter. It's all just whatever's good for business. But anyway, on the other side of the break, I'm going to talk more about how Matthew Crouch is now going to transform TBN. You know, I have to admit, I haven't really been watching TBN a whole lot lately. I used to monitor it and tape it all the time, and a lot of my tapes, you can see them all over the place on YouTube. A lot of people have picked up the tapes that I have gathered since the early 80s and have used it for their own demonstrations of the errors of Christian television, and that's okay with me. I welcome that. But I shared an article that was posted in the Tulsa World. I guess it's a local newspaper out of Tulsa. And the title was America's Pastor Max Lucado in Tulsa to film new TBN series titled Unshakable Hope. And so it goes on to show how he's going to have this new film series that he's doing, because it says Max Lucado is one of America's best-known Bible teachers and author of books that have sold more than 100 million copies. Okay, so here looks like Matthew Crouch has got his hand on somebody who, you know, might really look different than Ken Copeland and Benny Hinn. Of course, see right away, Matt got rid of Benny Hinn and he got rid of the praise-a-thons and all of that. So he is trying to get away from that rhinestone hillbilly showcase that Jan and Paul Crouch came up with. But reading part of this article, it says the Lucado Project is part of the vision of Tulsa filmmaker Tom Newman to retool Christian television to reach today's generation. This series, called Unshakable Hope, is being produced with the Oklahoma Film and Music Office using the Oklahoma Film Enhancement Rebate Program. Newman is program director for Trinity Broadcasting Network, the world's largest Christian television network, a position he assumed about a year and a half ago. TBN has 30 networks in 14 languages, well, more than 20, I guess, reaching millions of people around the globe. He is a longtime friend of TBN President Matt Crouch, the son of TBN founders Paul and Jan Crouch, both now deceased. About a year ago, Newman said, Matt sat across the table from me at dinner and said, you know, Tom, there have been a lot of people complaining about Christian television our whole lives. Now the question is, what are we going to do about it? Because we've always had somebody else to blame. Now it's you and me. Let's change the face of this. Let's see. It's an amazing opportunity and task. The kind of thing you dream about your whole life, Newman said. We're going to do everything we can to make Christian television not only more palatable, but to really reach the masses in a way that we believe it can. And as a start, they dropped the TBN's fundraising telethons, which Newman said offended some people. What Jan and Paul established was this really amazing worldwide network. All it lacks is really good content that can engage most of our world. We believe we can make television engaging and reach our world in a positive and significant way. Matt and I began to look at people who are resonating with our generation and saying something that brings them to a better place. People who have a significant influence in the world. So we approached Max, he said. So he's talking about Max Lucado. So they got Max, and they also got former governor, Arkansas Governor Huckabee. Mike Huckabee, one you've seen a lot on the Fox channel, and it does look like Fox TV is kind of getting rid of all their conservatives, so I guess they have no more room for Huckabee, so now he's going over to TBN. And let's see, on TBN, there's a news release here saying that former Arkansas governor, has teamed up with global faith and family television leader Trinity Broadcasting Network. Global Faith and Family Television. That's the new title for TBN. For a new weekly news and talk show premiering this fall exclusively on TBN. Huckabee will combine Huckabee's the name of the show. Huckabee will combine Governor Huckabee's commentary on news of the day and current issues, along with guests from the world of politics, entertainment, and faith. This program will follow a similar format from his favorite Fox News Channel talk show of the same title, which aired on the network from 2008 until 2015. So Huckabee is going to be in front of a live studio in Nashville, Tennessee. And we are excited to add Huckabee to our lineup at TBN as the first of many new developments at our network, says TBN Chairman Matt Crouch. Mike has decades-long reputation for compassionate statesmanship, solid biblical counsel, and solid common sense perspective. He is a welcome voice of wisdom, integrity, and faith in America that America needs sorely right now. And TBN's a perfect home for this thing. So anyway, so Matt's trying to clean up the act a little bit and try to make things more mainstream. But do you really think that right theology and sound doctrine or teaching is going to factor in on any of his choices? If you do, think again. Because his other show that they've just launched recently is The Shack. And, of course, The Shack, as many of you know, is that book that turned into a movie written by Paul Young, who has been proven time and again by experts such as Warren Smith over at Lighthouse Trails that The Shack is a heretical book. As a matter of fact, Lighthouse Trails has an article here by Warren Smith, and it explains the problem here. Let's see, where do I start? New Age proponent Sue Monk Kidd would agree with The Shack's definition of God in her book, First Light. She says God is the graffiti on the building. It is possible that a key to understanding The Shack could actually lie with Monk Kidd, who was once a conservative Southern Baptist Sunday school teacher. She began studying the teachings of mystic Thomas Merton, which eventually led her out of the Southern Baptist arena and into the New Age. Today, she follows goddess spirituality, Sophia in parentheses, and has said in one of her books that God dwells in all things, even excrement. And that's citing The Dance of the Dissident Daughter. And Warren continues, there is perhaps a striking similarity between The Shack's God, the Father, and the Black Madonna used in Monk Kidd's best-selling novel, The Secret Life of Bees, coming out soon as a movie. Monk Kidd says that the Black Madonna she chose is a powerful symbolic essence that could take up residence inside of the novel's character Lily and become catalytic in her transformation. The fact that both Sue Monk Kidd and William Young have chosen a Black Madonna figure as representing God, and that both talk about the ground of all being, God in all things, pantheism, cannot be ignored. Episcopal priest Matthew Fox says, quoting Matthew Fox, "Today the Black Madonna is returning. She is coming, not going, and she is calling us to something new and very ancient as well. The Black Madonna archetype awakens in us, and she is so important for the 21st century. The Black Madonna invites us into the dark and therefore into our depths. This is what the mystics call the inside of things, the essence of things. This is where divinity lies. It is where the true self lies. Because she is a goddess, the Black Madonna resides in all beings. She is the divine presence inside of creation." And in conclusion, Warren Smith says the gap between the New Age and Christianity is being narrowed, and the Shack is another disastrous and deceptive tool that will bring this about. When David Jeremiah favorably quoted and referenced Sue Monk Kidd in his book Life Wide Open, we knew this would further close the gap that gave Christianity its distinctness. It is this distinctness that allows sinful man to see his need for a Savior. When that gap closes, the gospel message will be hidden from view from even more people than it is today. The Shack has brought about some huge strides in causing this to take place. Yikes! Interesting that Warren Smith mentioned that David Jeremiah endorsed Sue Monk Kidd, That is outrageous. I knew when David Jeremiah compromised with TBN and had his own show on there and would join them in their praise-a-thons and all of that, that he was going to go off. And he did. And, that's really a terrible shame. Now, when I looked at the promo for the Shack that is on TBN, I saw that, how oddly, that this Paul Young, who wrote The Shack and is promoting the show, it's a promo on tbn.org that is promoting the show. In it, he even mentions the personification of wisdom as Sophia. So it all comes full circle. We knew back in the day that the New Age movement was going to saturate Christianity and that there would be this syncretism of all the world's religions, and that eventually it would all combine to be the great whore, the spiritual harlot that's mentioned in the book of Revelation. So right now we can see with Matt Crouch at the helm how TBN is now going away from some of the, the more money-hungry extremes, and now moving into the more, how would you put it, emergent side of the church and more of the strange mystical side. I mean, it's all come full circle. And of course, now it's going to be more culturally acceptable and lukewarm on top of that. So you see the Church of Laodicea in full swing right now. And that is leading to the direction they're heading in for the formation of Mystery Babylon and God's call to come out of her, my people. So, well, I'll be updating when the jury comes back on the Carra Crouch versus TBN situation. So stay tuned to Rapture Ready Radio and the articles, because that's where I'll be posting it. And if any of you are not on my Facebook page, you might want to go there, because I do post it there as soon as I get that up and notify everybody that I can. Because, I think the things are turning so quickly as far as Bible prophecy goes in the area of politics and wars and rumors of wars and all of the signs of the times, including the side of the false ecclesiastica, which is the great whore is forming. And sadly, it's being done by what's been called Christian television, defaming the name of Jesus Christ around the world. And on that note, until next week, keep on the lookout.